So this wasn't in the timetable, but I'm just going to bring up Sergeant Ekminda Kaur. She's just going to do a short poem on 1984. So, Sergeant Kaur.
Do I speak into that?
Just touch it, speak into that.
So I've got a poem that's in Punjabi. So hands up who can speak Punjabi. Okay, good. And I apologise it's not in English, but we can get an English version at a later date through the Sikh Association if needed. It's a poem about 1984 and the atrocities in India. And some colleagues already touched upon how people had ties put around their necks and set on fire just because there were Sikhs wearing turbans, that sort of theme. There's 5-6 small paragraphs, so it won't be too long. It's something that's been written personally for me when I was younger, and I haven't sung it for a long time, so excuse your vocals. ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਿੱਲੀਏ ਨੀ ਤੈਨੂੰ 1984 ਬਾਰੇ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਿੱਲੀਏ ਨੀ ਤੈਨੂੰ 1984 ਬਾਰੇ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਾ ਤੇਰਾ ਦਿਲ ਡੋਲਿਆ ਨੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਸੈਂਕੜੇ ਬੇਦੋਸ਼ੇ ਲੋਕ ਮਾਰੇ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਾ ਤੇਰਾ ਦਿਲ ਕੰਬਿਆ ਨੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਸੈਂਕੜੇ ਬੇਦੋਸ਼ੇ ਲੋਕ ਮਾਰੇ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਿੱਲੀਏ ਨੀ ਤੈਨੂੰ 1984 ਬਾਰੇ ਦਿਨੇ ਹੀ ਹਨਰ ਪੈ ਗਿਆ ਨੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਜ਼ਾਲਮਾਂ ਨੇ ਜ਼ੁਲਮ ਕਮਾਏ ਚੰਗੇ ਭਲੇ ਘਰ ਵਸਦੇ ਨੀ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਪਾਪੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਮਿੱਟੀ 'ਚ ਮਿਲਾਏ ਕੰਬੀਆਂ ਨਾ ਕੰਧਾਂ ਤੇਰੀਆਂ ਕੰਬੀਆਂ ਨਾ ਕੰਧਾਂ ਤੇਰੀਆਂ ਨੀ ਤੇਰੇ ਭੋਰਾ ਵੀ ਨਾ ਤਿੜਕੇ ਚੁਬਾਰੇ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਿੱਲੀਏ ਨੀ ਤੈਨੂੰ 1984 ਬਾਰੇ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਾ ਤੇਰਾ ਦਿਲ ਡੋਲਿਆ ਨੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਸੈਂਕੜੇ ਬੇਦੋਸ਼ੇ ਲੋਕ ਮਾਰੇ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਾ ਤੇਰਾ ਦਿਲ ਕੰਬਿਆ ਨੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਸੈਂਕੜੇ ਬੇਦੋਸ਼ੇ ਲੋਕ ਮਾਰੇ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਿੱਲੀਏ ਨੀ ਤੈਨੂੰ 1984 ਬਾਰੇ ਖਿੱਚ ਖਿੱਚ ਕੱਢੇ ਘਰਾਂ ਚੋਂ ਨੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਸਿੰਘ ਦਸਤਾਰਾਂ ਵਾਲੇ ਟੈਰ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਗਲਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਨੀ ਤੇਲ ਸੁੱਟ ਕੇ ਜਿਉਂਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਜਾਲੇ ਅੰਬਰਾਂ ਨੇ ਤਾਹਾਂ ਮਾਰੀਆਂ ਅੰਬਰਾਂ ਨੇ ਤਾਹਾਂ ਮਾਰੀਆਂ ਨੀ ਤੇਰੇ ਤੱਕ ਕੇ ਚੰਦਰੀਏ ਕਾਰੇ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਿੱਲੀਏ ਨੀ ਤੈਨੂੰ 1984 ਬਾਰੇ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਿੱਲੀਏ ਨੀ ਤੈਨੂੰ 1984 ਬਾਰੇ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਾ ਤੇਰਾ ਦਿਲ ਡੋਲਿਆ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਾ ਤੇਰਾ ਦਿਲ ਡੋਲਿਆ ਨੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਸੈਂਕੜੇ ਬੇਦੋਸ਼ੇ ਲੋਕ ਮਾਰੇ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਾ ਤੇਰਾ ਦਿਲ ਕੰਬਿਆ ਨੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਸੈਂਕੜੇ ਬੇਦੋਸ਼ੇ ਲੋਕ ਮਾਰੇ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਭੈੜਾ ਰੂਪ ਧਾਰਿਆ ਨੀ ਰਲੀ ਤੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਰਾਖਸ਼ਾਂ ਦੀ ਟਾਣੀ ਖੂਨ ਤੂੰ ਵਹਾਇਆ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਦਾ ਨੀ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਜਮਨਾ ਨਦੀ ਦਾ ਪਾਣੀ ਦੱਸ ਕੀ ਕਸੂਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਦੱਸ ਕੀ ਕਸੂਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਨੀ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਮਾਪਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਖੋਲੇ ਸਹਾਰੇ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਿੱਲੀਏ ਨੀ ਤੈਨੂੰ 1984 ਬਾਰੇ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਿੱਲੀਏ ਨੀ ਤੈਨੂੰ 1984 ਬਾਰੇ ਕੀ ਸੀ ਗਵਾਇਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮਾਰ ਮਾਰ ਜੋ ਮਾਸੂਮ ਜਿੰਦਾ ਰੋਲੀਆਂ ਮਾਰ ਮਾਰ ਪੁੱਤ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਦੇ ਨੀ ਕਾਤੋਂ ਖੇਲੀਆਂ ਤੈਂ ਖੂਨ ਦੀਆਂ ਹੋਲੀਆਂ ਏਦਾਂ ਤੂੰ ਚਲਾਈਆਂ ਛਵੀਆਂ ਏਦਾਂ ਤੂੰ ਚਲਾਈਆਂ ਛਵੀਆਂ ਨੀ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਲੱਕੜੀ ਤੇ ਚੱਲਦੇ ਨੇ ਆਰੇ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਿੱਲੀਏ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਐ ਨੀ ਤੈਨੂੰ 1984 ਬਾਰੇ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਾ ਤੇਰਾ ਦਿਲ ਡੋਲਿਆ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਾ ਤੇਰਾ ਦਿਲ ਡੋਲਿਆ ਨੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਸੈਂਕੜੇ ਬੇਦੋਸ਼ੇ ਲੋਕ ਮਾਰੇ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਾ ਤੇਰਾ ਦਿਲ ਕੰਬਿਆ ਨੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਸੈਂਕੜੇ ਬੇਦੋਸ਼ੇ ਲੋਕ ਮਾਰੇ 21 ਦੇ 31 ਪਾ ਕੇ ਜੀ ਸਿੰਘ ਮੋੜਦੇ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਭਾਜੀਆਂ ਬਾਜਾਂ ਵਾਲੇ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਰੂਹਾਂ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਆਪ ਹੱਥੀਂ ਸਾਜੀਆਂ ਫਾਂਸੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਰਸੇ ਚੁੰਮ ਕੇ ਫਾਂਸੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਰਸੇ ਚੁੰਮ ਕੇ ਨੀ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੋਸ਼ ਨਾਲ ਛੱਡਦੇ ਜੈਕਾਰੇ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਏ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਏ ਨੀ ਤੈਨੂੰ 1984 ਬਾਰੇ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਾ ਤੇਰਾ ਦਿਲ ਡੋਲਿਆ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਾ ਤੇਰਾ ਦਿਲ ਡੋਲਿਆ ਨੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਸੈਂਕੜੇ ਬੇਦੋਸ਼ੇ ਲੋਕ ਮਾਰੇ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਾ ਤੇਰਾ ਦਿਲ ਕੰਬਿਆ ਨੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਸੈਂਕੜੇ ਬੇਦੋਸ਼ੇ ਲੋਕ ਮਾਰੇ ਪੁੱਛਦਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਿੱਲੀ ਏ ਨੀ ਤੈਨੂੰ 1984 ਬਾਰੇ 1984 ਬਾਰੇ 1984 ਬਾਰੇ That's all.
Thank you so much for that, Sergeant Cole. We will see if we can get that translated so you guys can understand the true meaning behind what those words were. So our final speaker today is Dr. Iktikar Chima, and they'll be speaking to us about the ramifications following the attacks on Sikh community and the possible considerations for policing surrounding these issues. Dr. Chima is the Director at Institute for Leadership and Community Birmingham and Fellow at Edward Cadbury Centre at the University of Birmingham. Dr. Chima is also the member of the Global Steering Committee for the UN for Prevention of Genocide. He studied philosophy at University of Oxford and achieved his PhD in International Relations from the University of Gloucestershire and MBA from University of Sunderland. He successfully completed his CPD in counter-terrorism from University of Maryland, USA in 2017. He remained the chair of Counter-Extremism and Prevent Reference Group for Birmingham City Council 2017 to 18. He's also the author of 3 books and many research articles. In 2017, US Commission on International Religious Freedom published his report titled Constitutional and Legal Challenges Faced by the Minorities in India. He has acted as expert witness to US Congress on several occasions at its hearing on human rights and religious freedom. His services to human rights, religious freedom advocacy and interfaith relations receive formal recognition and honours by the Congress of the United States and the State Senate and Assembly of California. So I'd like to invite Dr. Chima up to do their presentation.
Let's share the hymn and the prayer of the son of the martyr and the son of the martyr.
You need to do it because I've got to jump out.
I speak about genocide across the times at every forum, but when it comes to Sikh genocide, I'm very emotional. So some emotional. You told who I am, but today I stand on this podium not as a speaker, but also a witness of Sikh genocide. I'm not that old. In 1984, I was just 4-year-old because I was born in 1980. But often I find that Sikh curtail the Sikh genocide to 1984. Probably you haven't seen what I have seen. I was living in Lahore, where the fifth Guru, Guru Arjan Dev, was martyred. So that very river Ravi, whom you have read about, just still flows near Lahore. It was in 90s, 93, 4, 5, when I was just a teenager, that flood used to come from India, because we have monsoon weather and a lot of water just come to Ravi. But that flood brought a lot of young Sikh who were martyred or killed extrajudicially by the Indian police and army, tortured, martyred, unceremoniously dumped into the water of Ravi. You haven't seen that? I have, because there was nobody to perform their burial. My father took me several times to see those dead bodies and to arrange their cremation. I will never forget that. That was in 1984. That was 1 decade after 1984. So change this narrative of 1984. Sikh genocide started in 1984. It didn't finish there. Second thing, I, being a student of history, was very keen about the Sikh history, just a minor correction. About Sakha Nankana Sahib, very significant one, but there was no train who ran on the protesters. That was a different event, happened in 1922 at Panja Sahib, where the Sikhs were trying to serve the langars to some Sikh prisoners, but the train wasn't stopped by the colonial masters, and they accepted the martyrdom. Sakha Nankana Sahib was 1921, when under this colonial Raj, whom we celebrate, I have taken the oath of allegiance, but colonialism is colonialism. This is the colonial masters who took the Sikh Raj, who brought the idol worship in the Sikh temples for generation of revenue, and the Sikhs has to start a whole movement called Singh Sabha movement to liberate their gurdwaras, and hence Sakha Nankana Sahib happened. Just a minor correction without creating any offense. Now, let's talk about today. What I'm going to map to you is especially for the young people and officers, because when we talk about Sikh genocide, for many, many years it wasn't easy to talk about it. I would like to map the process which leads to genocide and try to map the Sikh genocide against the international process and the convention, that how this genocide happens. Because we have Nagar Kirtans, we have rallies, we speak to our own community, but we need to take this to other communities. And to do that, we have to map that against the international conventions, that how this process works and what happened to us. So, the first slide, please. What is genocide? I mean, it's just a term which means geno and side, meaning race, and side mean killing. Obviously, comparatively a new, about a century, I would say less than a century old term by Raphael Lemkin, which he invented in Holocaust days. So the term itself is new, but Ghallughara is a term we have been using for centuries now. We obviously in the UN Charter, next slide please, we have Article 2 of 1948 UN Convention on Prevention and Punishment of Genocide. So how it defines, now when I will define this, you would directly, especially the older generation, will be able to map this. So UN, when it defines it, it says that genocide is any of the following acts committed with the intent to destroy, in whole or part, in a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such, killing members of the group, causing seriously bodily harm or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within a group, forcibly transforming children of the group to another group. So, if you look at this definition, every bit of this is relevant to the Sikhs and to the Sikh genocide. When you look destroy in whole or in part, you are obviously a racial, ethnical, and religious group. So Sikh comes under that definition. When we talk about seriously bodily or mental harm, So what else would be the bodily harm when people were burnt alive on the streets of the so-called largest democracy of the world? And when we talk about mental harm, when the daughters were raped in front of their fathers, their brothers, can you imagine the trauma? When the youngsters as young as 6, 8, and 10 were taken to the prisons by tagging them as potentially dangerous, dangerous, and very dangerous. Can you imagine the trauma of that very generation who has seen that? So when it comes to the physical harming or mental harming a community through this process, each word of this definition is very much can be mapped out against the Sikh genocide. Now, we go, and I will come to the later part, transforming children, or I would say changing the demography of a community. That will be covered under my later presentation, that how Sikh and their demography is being changed where they come from in the current day, because Sikh genocide, or the process of genocide at least, has not stopped even in 21st century. Going to the next one. So here, genocide is not a simple process to explain. It has, academically defined 8 stages, which are classification, symbolization, dehumanization, organization, polarization, preparation, extermination, and denial. So when we say genocide, it's not a simple process. Usually, one point for all of you to remember, when we talk about the Sikh genocide, usually as common person, we do a big mistake by just relating Sikh genocide to one event of a killing of someone. Genocide is not that simple. If it was just result of one event and 1 month, then it's not genocide. It has to be more comprehensive than that. So we have to keep in mind all these 8 stages. Now I would go further on the next slide, where I would explain to you that how that works. So first stage of a genocide is which is classification, where you have this narrative of us against them, distinguished by nationality, ethnicity, race, or religion, then names, languages, type of dress, group uniform, ID cards, and then look at your own history after 1947. Us against them. Probably the young people wouldn't know, Sikhs were promised a special status in the Republic of India. What that special status was, it is so sad that after 1947, after the betrayal of the Sikhs, they were identified as the tribe of criminals, not by XYZ, but by an official memorandum of something equivalent to Home Office of this country. Imagine if Home Office of United Kingdom says community XYZ or ABC should be classified as tribe of criminal and issue a memorandum to its officials that they should be treated as such. Will that not be genocidal process of classifying a tribe or people or race? So that's what State of India did. Soon after 1947, Sikhs were classified as tribe of criminals. When it comes to the language or preservation of language, India had one language, one state based, 17 states or provinces created. Sikhs whose demography was already changed, who were displaced after 1947, they were denied a Punjabi Suba or a province where their language could be preserved. So next is dehumanization. One group denies the humanity of another group and makes the victim group subhuman. Hate propaganda speeches, print on hate radios. Dehumanization invokes superiority of one group and inferiority of the other, and also justify murder of calling it ethnic cleansing or purification. And then obviously genocide is a group crime, so it must be organized. Now, move a bit forward. Come out from early 1947 or maybe 50s, reach to 70s. When Sikhs use their right to self-determination or right to speak about their rights, how many of you know about Anandpur Sahib resolution? Raise your hands. Yeah, an older generation knows, and some of the people who research. Those who hasn't read about it, they should. So Sikh very peacefully, within the norms of democracy, gather together and ask for their constitutional rights. And there was nothing about militancy, there was nothing about separation, there was nothing which was unconstitutional, unlawful. A peaceful assembly asked for this. But then they were tagged, as we are saying, the hate propaganda. The hate propaganda was these guys are separatists, these guys are anti-national, these guys want to split this country. Imagine, we are in world's oldest democracy. People of Scotland use right of internal self-determination by saying they want Scotland as an independent country. Has any of the UK politicians said they are terrorists? Has any one of us perceived them as terrorists or separatists? Or have any of the British mainstream press said that these guys gonna break our society, they should be treated or dehumanized? It doesn't happen in the real democracies. But that's where very thing happened in India, where the Sikhs were dehumanized. They were classified as terrorists, separatists, anti-national, people who wants to break that country. And that propaganda was supported by the then government. As I said, that genocide is a group crime. It must be organized. So it didn't happen only in 1984, it started much earlier. And then polarization. Then obviously, extremists drive the group apart, hate groups broadcast and print polarization propaganda, laws are passed, and political moderates are silenced. Now, then is the preparation. Members of the victim group are forced to wear identifying symbols, death lists are made, victims are separated, victims are also deported, weapons for killing are stockpiled, and extermination camps. And then obviously extermination. One group deny the humanity of another group, hate propaganda through speeches, dehumanization again, and ethnic cleansing, purification. Now, move a bit forward from 1970s to early 80s. You have a prime minister in that country who is consistently denying Sikhs their human rights, their right of free speech, who imposes an emergency in so-called world's largest democracy, abrogate the constitution because her election was made null and void. She was an illegal dictator. If it was done by a military general, it would have been called martial law. But because it was done by a democratic figure, a so-called elected prime minister her own election was declared illegal, illegitimate. She abrogated the constitution of the country and then declared that country a secular socialist republic. India wasn't officially secular. It is such a mockery of democracy that when the country's constitution is abrogated, the courts are not functioning, you are declaring that country secular. And then you ask the army general of your military plan an attack on the heart of Sikhism. And you start that process of bringing in the resources. By the way, this country's intelligence was consulted too. KGB of Russia was consulted too, way beyond 1984. Dehradun, which is the military academy of India, it had Harmandir Sahib's maps and Harmandir Sahib's model for Indian army to practice how to attack the heart of Sikhism. I think one of the things Sikh Federation you should do is, I'm very delighted we are here today, at least ask the parliamentarians and the new elected ones to make those documents public, deny it or accept it whether this country assisted that attack on Darbar Sahib. And before me, some people have used word Operation Blue Star. Operations are there to eradicate something bad. It wasn't Operation Blue Star, it was Attack Blue Star, and hence should be called Attack Blue Star, not Operation Blue Star. I'm a student of counterterrorism. I have done some courses to understand counterterrorism. And all of you are the policemen and women here. Tell me, in a West building, there are about 30 odd people whom you know who they are. They have no intent to go and plant bombs here or bombs there. They are not the ones who are going to create unrest. They don't have modern weaponry. They don't like the narrative, so probably they will say that stop talking. So that's what happened. An army was sent. Press wasn't supposed to cover any of these events. And we talk about Darbar Sahib. Most of us confuse it with Akal Takht Sahib as well. Next to it is Akal Takht Sahib, which is the symbol of Sikh sovereignty. That was targeted specially. And not only that, the Sikh artifacts were plundered. The relics were taken. It wasn't a simple attack on extremists, so-called they tag as, or militants, or armed people. It was attack on the heart of Sikhism. It was attack on the Sikh culture. It was attack on the Sikh identity. When we talk about identity, just a quick point as a cross-reference. We always talk about Mughals, and he said that I might be offended. I'm not offended as Muslim. Mughals are not I'm very proud of. Jahangir we talk of was son of Jodhabai, and his father was Akbar, who deviated from Islam and invented his own religion called Din-e-Ilahi. So I'm not offended at all. He doesn't represent my faith or the traditions of it. And if the identity is compromised, then Akbar, Babur, Humayun, even the worst of them, Aurangzeb, had many of the non-Muslims as the courtiers on very high posts in their court. So if it was the matter of religion and not identity or compromising the identities, Gurus wouldn't have been martyred. They would have had the big seats in the Mughal court. So it all comes down to identity. That's why probably Akal Takht Sahib was attacked. And it didn't ended up there. It ended up, it has actually never ended up. Then we have November 1984. I mean, people before me has talked about. But sorry, I got carried away while going on that narrative. Next slide. So that's the denial. That's the 8th stage of the genocide. Obviously, deny the evidence, deny that there were no mass killings at all, question and minimize the statistics, block access to archives and witnesses, attack on the truth tellers, deny genocidal attempt, blame on victims, denial of current interest, deny facts, definitions of genocide. Now, this is what has been happening since 1984. All these denials are there. Each one you talk about, deny the evidence. First of all, so far I have heard from many Sikhs as well, Dilli de dange, Dilli rioting. It wasn't rioting. You are actually helping the oppressor by calling it dange. Rioting is something else, genocide is something else. So this has been tagged as such. Then attack the truth teller. How many of you know about Jaswant Singh Khalda? Raise your hands. And those who don't, please do. He was the one who talked about the Sikh genocide. He was the one who... Class fellow. Sorry, oh, great. So he was the one who brought to the world's attention the mass cremation sites of the Sikh genocide. And hence he became the victim of that genocide. So all of that is denial. And then blame the victims. This is what we have been hearing. How many of you heard the then Prime Minister who said that when a big tree is taken, the ground shakes? That is blaming on you. You have taken the revenge, we have committed your genocide. And that genocide was that severe, ladies and gentlemen, that when the Sikh genocide was happening in 1984, you know who was the president of largest democracy? Who was he? Which faith did he belong to? Speak up. He was a Sikh. And you would be surprised to know that the first victim, formal victim of the Sikh genocide of November 1984 was the president of that very state of India, who was in Yemen at that time on an official visit. When he came back, his car was the first one to be attacked by the people who were committing the genocide. He was the so-called president of India. Why? Because he was Sikh. Imagine King Charles coming from somewhere and people attacking his convoy or him because he's a Christian. How would the Christian community would feel? The formal victim of the Sikh genocide was the president of India, who said, when the Sikh genocide started happening, my community started calling me that what is happening? He said, I talked to the then Prime Minister of India. He said, I'm looking after it, you don't need to worry. He said, it intensifies and I ring Prime Minister again, and after that, my phone lines were cut. So, if a president is a victim of genocide, who else wouldn't be? Imagine the state of common Sikhs in Delhi and elsewhere, what they would have faced. I don't need to go into details because we have short time, but you need to look what happened. Next slide. So, some of these might be very visually, it's a sensitive thing, but I put this there for you to see some of it. So that's Akal Takht Sahib I was talking about, which was attacked by the tanks of the Indian Army. This is how people were burnt alive in India. Look at the bloodshed in Darbar Sahib. And that's a skeleton of a Sikh martyr and the dog there. This is what all happened. This is not from a horror movie. This is what people have sustained. This is what we call Sikh genocide, which many are not willing to accept even today. So the generation here now always, and some of the Sikhs say to me, oh, it was 40 years ago, let's move on. This is what we say in the UN, never forget, never again, and never move on till it is recognized. Because one genocide leads to another. One atrocity crimes leads to another. And you actually strengthen the hands of the oppressor, who would always say, oh, it's an old event, forget about it. Let's go for reconciliation. Reconciliation without justice and acknowledgement is nothing. Now, going about the recognition, because I would leave some time for questions later. I think UK is very behind in recognizing the Sikh genocide. I have been working consistently with the US lawmakers because I think US is a superpower. I staunchly believe in that. And UK always follow the lead of the US. So I think UK needs to follow that lead of recognizing the genocide of the Sikhs. When we started talking about it in the US Parliament, it was difficult. In various testimony of mine at the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission and before the Foreign Affairs Committee and Homeland Security Committee, I always brought in atrocity crimes and the Sikh genocide. With the grace of Guru, now we have 4 state assemblies in US, California, Texas, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. They unanimously passed a resolution recognizing the Sikh genocide. I've just put one of the resolutions here, which is from the state of Texas. I'm very humbled that my name and my work is mentioned in this resolution passed by the state Senate. And we're going to take it to the US Congress. Because if the Armenian genocide, which happened centuries ago, could be recognized, Sikh genocide should be recognized. Because this genocide is continuing. Previously, they were killing people. Now they are changing, the oppressor is changing the demography of Punjab. Sikhs are being driven out. Sikhs are not allowed to buy any land outside their state, but others are allowed to do the land grabbing in Punjab. Genealogy is being changed. Sikh youth is being drugged. And those who are living there, the circumstances are as such they have no other means but to leave the country or the land of their forefathers. And most relevant to the policing is transnational repression. I'm really shocked to see that our parliamentarians are too lenient on transnational repression. How many of you actually know the transnational repression? Raise your hands. Not a single hand. That is shocking. Transnational repression is when a foreign state tries to snub the voice of human rights activists, people, the journalists, or anyone else on a foreign land through its agents. You remember Russia used some of those tactics on the on the UK soil. We have heard some Chinese doing that on the US soil, and we know state of India doing it everywhere, including Canada. We must compliment state of Canada and United States and the Prime Minister of Canada to speak about this transnational repression of India in the Canadian Parliament. And I must compliment the US Congress, which has heard us. Earlier this year in February, I briefed the Congress about the transnational repression and the threat it poses to US sovereignty and the human rights activists there. Now, I'm very glad they have criminalized transnational repression, and they're asking for at least a sentence of 10 years minimum whosoever harass, intimidate, or bully anybody who's talking about human rights or do any sort of clandestine activities. So I think police community here need to advise our politicians that they need to curb transnational repressions. For God's sake, we are the world's largest, oldest democracy. We talk about the British values. British values are democratic values. British values are there to stand with the human rights. British values are to save people from persecution. British values are there that every citizen has right of free speech. Are we or our representative really safeguarding that? That's the question I'm going to leave with all of you. And thank you all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tuman. Just ask for the speakers, please, if you guys could just come up. I've got a few questions. There'll be like a 10-15 minute Q&A with some questions that have been prepared, and then the PCC time we will then come up and speak to everyone. Thank you. Yes, sure.
BG, no, there's some important questions that you can answer for us, please. Should we go around the table then? I'll if there's any police questions.
Read the handwriting.
I'll read them out. I'll read them out.
Sure, please.
Yeah, if you read out the questions.
Wherever you want. Wherever.
In the middle.
Yeah, please.
I've also been informed that food is here.
Great.
That's the main thing. So we've had a few questions. That's what the paper and pen is for on the table. So I'll read out the questions, and some of the speakers will be able to answer them for us. So we've had a question here. In light of the recent attack on a Gurdwara in Kent, what are WMP doing to reassure the Gurdwaras and Sikh communities in the Midlands? What are they doing to reassure the community?
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa. I mean, firstly, you know, it's a really bad incident that happened in Kent. So from the Sikh Association perspective, we're supporting our local policing areas in making sure that they're aware of what's taken place. And through our local policing areas, you know, they've got Gurdwara on their areas and they can increase visits to the Gurdwara. You know, we put out releases through our feeds that we've got just to make sure that everyone's cited on that. And through the national, I know there's been support provided to Kent Police as well, so that they understand the feelings of the Sikh community for that incident.
And just to add to that, we have senior members from West Midlands Police here, and they're very receptive, and one of the things is that they're here because they care. So they are aware of what's going on. It was an isolated incident. West Midlands, as such, isn't affected by an incident as that. More information will come through, I guess, as time is progressing. I believe the person was charged and will be brought to justice. But as far as we're concerned, with West Midlands, our Gurdwara are safe, and they are safe havens for anyone that requires shelter. So is it a thing for us to worry about? We must always be cognizant. We always need to be aware of what's happening. But as far as our Ghallughara, they're served by some great people, and some are here in front of me right now from Thibodeau Gurdwara as well, Gurdwara from Derby. They are very well tuned in how to take care of our community and our Gurdwara. I hope that answers the question.
Can I just add to that from the other side? So as a representative of a Gurdwara and have the responsibility to make sure everyone does enter the Gurdwara, leave safely. There's a bit of a dichotomy. Many years ago there was a grant available to make places of worship safer. The dichotomy was it was to make places safer if they weren't already safe. And I applied twice and got rejected twice because the feedback was, well, we've had no instances of Gurdwara because you work with us. It's from the police testimony. That you work with us in the community and we're aware of what happens. We're able to nip it in the bud before it flowers. So there is that fundamental, if you work together in the community, that hopefully this incident in Gravesend is a one-off. But actually there are very few incidents. The only concern I would have from the Sangat side, the trustees of the Gurdwara side, is there a powder keg somewhere that could suddenly happen? So keep an eye on that kind of intelligence, that if it does happen, will it happen in a big way as opposed to little incidents? Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question is, please could you elaborate the words, strengthen the hands of the oppressor? Are you able to give an example of this?
Sure. Well, when we talk about strengthening the hands of oppressor, the first thing we need to understand is that when we buy into the narrative of oppressor and take that as our own narrative, that is how we strengthen the narrative of oppressor. With regards to Sikh genocide, when you say it was Dilli de Dange or rioting in Delhi, that is not our narrative. That's the narrative of your oppressor. When you say that it was instigated by a single event and it wasn't a process, then you are strengthening the hand of oppressor. When you say just move on after 40 years, we are not bothered about it. It doesn't need any recognition or response. We have moved on. That's how you strengthen the hands of oppressor. And that oppressor, by the way, hasn't stopped. From genocide, they have moved to econocide. And from econocide, they're gonna now go for another type of genocide by changing your genealogy. Do a bit of research about it.
So I've got a question here. Sergeant Heathcote, I know you put your name on there, so we're related to you. You've asked, how do you earn your licence for a Shosted? And it's asked about females too, because it mentions, there was a mention of good men. So how do you earn your licence for a Shosted?
So I'm not an absolute expert on this, but when you go to certain places to take Amrit, you have to answer questions, as all Amrit Sanjars do. They're not just going to let anyone in, they have to make sure that you're the right person. So in that process, they'll ask you questions, they'll understand who you are, they'll get a gauge of your character. It's not like you can show up one day, take on with. Okay, you have to help out for a couple of days, show your face, have people recognise you, become a part of the community. And then once you do, they'll have that character reference build up. After that, once you are issued UMRIP, you are issued a license. You have to pursue this license. It's not something that you just get given. Mine's in renewal right now. You've got to renew it. You've got to take care of it. You've got to keep it with you. So it's a whole process, as with any license. It's just character references and build-ups.
Sorry, just a quick question. It's going to be one of my questions. I should be answering. This license that you talk of, what is on there? Does it say what shots did you have, and what's the context of this license?
Do we have Google?
Okay.
If we do, just Google Burdada license.
You want to bring it up now? Or you want
If you want to see that
research?
yeah, so you can look at that there. But basically, it's written in English and Punjabi. It's given out, so it's issued originally by the Burdada, then it was given around to Taxal and other places. There's many places that use it, and also there's quite a few places, especially in the UK, that don't. So it's not a universal practice. I think it should be, because I think this sort of documentation really legitimises us, and it helps us out. Anything else?
Just regards to the Shasta and the if you can maybe have a conversation off there's some work happening in the background. I'm conscious that there might be some views that are shared that might be detrimental. So if I can respectfully ask that regards to Kutpani, you said we're going to talk about it after, but that's a conversation that's in progress, and you can just call it down for a conversation.
Yeah.
So there's a question here, is there or will there be additional training for police officers regarding identifying offensive weapons and the difference of Gidban and Shasta? That's come from frontline policing.
Jack, that's the same
Same thing.
said,
Yeah.
That's fine.
Later conversation.
No plated articles, no Gidbans, no Shastas.
Just to get there, the Gidban, there's some work happening in the background. And I'm conscious that we're not sharing views that personally might be personal views opposed to...
just come up here and just...
Right, so it's an ongoing conversation, so we can talk about that.
That's fine. What do you understand or suggest as being the current diversity training for police officers or staff, specifically the understanding of different faiths in policing our cosmopolitan society?
Well, we have our D&I specialist there, who's just took over the role for West Midlands Police. Congratulations and welcome to the team. We're there to support, and education-wise, so part of the learning and development package, we are devising a video which will take a member of the public and describe their conversations and interactions with police officers on the ground. So, as my little video here has his Shasta with it, perhaps it gets stopped and searched, perhaps there's a 999 call going in. So we are producing a video, so there is work in the background to be able to have that conversation, because sometimes people feel awkward having these conversations, especially within policing. Are you going to get in trouble for asking a simple question? You know what, you're not. I would love to have those conversations, but we're going to be producing content that hopefully helps normalise what is just normal, regular things for us, and educate our colleagues along with it. So yes, work in progress.
Okay.
Sorry. Just to add something, obviously I've not worked in policing, of course, but I have worked in professional industry, and I think it comes down to two things. Yes, you can put forward all of these important documents and videos and all that, but it also comes down to just corporate culture a lot of the time. So if you work in an organisation and people don't understand about Sikhi, it's your job to go out there and talk to people. You can't just sit back and say, "Gosh, no, you've got to go out there. You've got to join the D&I committee. You've got to put on presentations. You've got to say, oh, this is what this is. Let me educate you. Let me talk about it. You've got to be presentable. You've got to work on your skills. It's up to you as well. It's not like you can just sit back and say, Polisa Kamya, is there work to do? No, it's your job, your responsibility. Get out there and talk to people.
Yeah, just a quick response to this from across the pond. After 9/11, a lot of Sikhs were victim of hate crime in the US, for instance. They were misidentified as Muslims, and some people passing by called them Osama and all of that. And some killings as well in US of certain Sikhs of being misidentified. So what they did wonderful media campaign, they had some paid advertisements on the mainstream media channel talking about Sikhi, why they have Karpan, why they have Shastar. That helped people to understand what Sikhi is, what Shastars are, what tradition it carries. So maybe something similar in the UK would be helpful.
So how can we as officers or staff support recognition for the genocides without fearing PST? Someone scared of professional standards here.
Good question.
There's a person who worked in PSD on this panel.
The thing is, look, we're all here today, yeah? So this is how it's done. It's through education. You know, we had the chief open the event at the start. You know, we have conversations with the chief. I know Harvey and Cam have had conversations with the current chief and previously. It's through education. So we shouldn't be shying away from the conversation. We know that there's massive pain in our community, yeah, of you know, what happened in 1984. So the way we do it is by acknowledging it's happened, having the conversations and educating people. You know, we've got people on the panel here who've provided some really insightful thoughts and you know, about what actually happened. So that's how we do it. You know, policing's got a responsibility to talk about it, but we've got people within the community who've got lots of great knowledge. And you know, exactly what's happened today. We've invited people in, and you know, every single one of us are going to take something away of, you know, I've learned things today that I wasn't aware of previously, and I've read up and researched, you know, what's happened in 1984. So simply, that's the way to do it, is through educating and having that conversation. Yeah, and ultimately, you know, from a PSD perspective, you know, because I do work in PSD, you know, we've got the code of ethics, yeah, you know, courage, the public service, you know, listening. As long as you kind of work within that framework, there's no issues.
We'll do just one last question.
Can I just add to that? It was slightly sort of an anecdotal point. Peel an onion. Take that picture away in your mind. What you see and what you hear on the media, and I'm talking to the non-Sikhs in the room particularly, or even Sikhs who perhaps don't know as much about their own Sikhi as they should, you know, want to. Be curious. Don't cut the onion. It'll make you cry straight away. Peel it. Look at what the story you've heard and peel it away. And what's the truth behind that story? Peel that layer away. Keep peeling away those layers until you really understand what the story is. Very much like policing, you know, you're curious, be curious. Peel the layers, don't cut through the onion, but peel the layers. And once that curiosity kicks in the West Midlands, you're policing a very multicultural society. Yeah. One of the largest non-ethnic populations in the country. So you need to know about your community. So as police officers, it's a two-way thing. Visit your gurdwaras, have the different conversations, and steadily peel away. And not just the Sikh community, all communities. Learn about the communities you live in. Once you understand what makes them tick, you're then able to tap into how to help them live in a positive way without detriment to society.
So I'll just do one last question because I'm mindful of time. A common theme throughout the talks is about trying to become more spiritual and have good mental health. So can the organisations help with this? And I'll probably add in, is there anything you can recommend from any of the speakers to try and gain that spiritual mindset?
I can try something right now if you want. You know, why give the knowledge to take away for later? One of the things that is key within the Guru's message and the Guru's wisdom is to be able to center yourself in this moment. And the Guru uses a term which is called remembrance, which is Simran. And it's also, remembrance simply can be translated to remembering God or the divine. But another way to look at that term is to be present and remember the gifts that we do have. When I say gifts, we don't often term them as gifts, but we've all got gifts sat here right now, and one of those gifts might be your ability to be able to communicate with other people. Not everybody, that's not a strength for everyone. but it might be for you to be able to be attentive, and one of the things that came forward was to be able to listen. And truly being present and being able to listen is a gift. So if we can just all take a moment on bringing into your awareness a gift that you've been blessed with. We often don't look at them as gifts. And today's studies show that basically this is practicing gratitude, but it's taking time every day to be present, 5 to 10 minutes out of your day, to just be conscious of these gifts. And it helps our brain in positive ways. It helps gain more grey matter. There's plenty of neuroscience behind this as well, to what the Guru's wisdom was. So I can introduce you all to do that right now. Just think of something right now, bring into your awareness a gift that you've been blessed with, that you have, that you potentially take for granted, but you don't take time out to think about it. And just sit with it, but sit with it long enough until your inside goes into a thankful and appreciative state. And allow your internal self to say the word thank you. And the term that we use, that the Guru's given us, is to be present, to say thank you, is the word Vaheguru. The word Va is when you hit that state internally where you're in awe of the Creator. And it's not something that you have to believe in, it's something that you feel and experience. So within Sikhi, it's not that you believe in an external God, it's something that you center yourself and experience in this moment. And that is where that expression Va comes, that you can experience divinity right now in this moment through recognizing the gifts that you've been blessed with. I would say that's a great place to start your spiritual journey. If you spend every morning doing that, or using a name of God that you resonate with and just chanting it for a while, being very present. So I've found an organization in the last 3 years called Journey of Compassion, which is all about mental well-being. We support people from a spiritual lens for their mental well-being. So you can check out the work that we do. So like I said, we call Journey of Compassion because Guru Nanak said that it's compassion that gives birth to dharam, to the true way of living, but it's born out of compassion. So we try and use a compassionate lens, and that comes from my self-experiences of mental health, which is how we've developed this organization to help others with their mental well-being.
Just quickly adding to that, from the spirituality point of view, I'm born a Muslim, I'm a Muslim. But I listen to Gurbani almost every day because spirit is different from the body, from the organized faiths. So, to understand Bani, you have to be in tune with Guru and you have to contextualize his journey as well. Because if you can't in tune yourself, then it will just be you're going to do a job or you're going to listen to the kirtan, but it wouldn't affect your soul. So, in tune yourself with that. And second thing is, I'm a great fan of, and I always endorse, a lot of Naam Japna, Vand Chakna. But remember, as young Sikhs, your symbolism of your religion is not rosary or mala. You know, for Christian Muslims, our spirituality is around the mala or rosary. Your symbolism is something else. You are not only sants, you are Sipahi as well. So when you follow your spirituality or spiritual journey, follow the path of the Guru, who were sants, but they were Sipahis as well.
Thank you so much. There will be a chance afterwards to network and speak to some of the speakers if you have any more burning questions. But no, thank you so much to our speakers.
Just one point.
Sure.
Just one point whilst remember. So something was mentioned earlier about females, because I think the term you used was kind of male. So the one thing I'll say from a Sikh perspective is that males and females are treated the same. So whatever a male can do, a female can do.
Of course.
So we talk about, license, taking on, carrying Shasta, having a good barn and stuff, yeah, it's exactly the same. So I just wanted to kind of mention that point whilst remembered it, yeah, that males and females, from a Sikhism perspective, are equals, and both fulfil the same roles.
Thank you. So, finally, I'd just like to invite up the Police Crime Commissioner, Simon Foster. Thank you so much for being here. And I'll just have a quick chat with you guys, and then we'll close the event.
So, good afternoon everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation and the opportunity to speak to you. I'm mindful of the time, and I'm sure many of you are looking forward to lunch. I just wanted to take this opportunity though to just reflect briefly on 5 particular matters. Firstly, the importance of staff associations. Secondly, the recent elections that have taken place. Representation and hate crime, accountability and governance, and the police and crime plan. I've always taken the view that it's extremely important for me as the Police and Crime Commissioner to engage with, listen to and work with the staff associations and the trade unions and indeed the Police Federation within West Midlands Police. I think it's really important that I engage with all of you. And that's why when I was elected back in May 2021, I immediately reinstated the meetings between myself and the staff associations, the Police Federation, the trade unions, on a quarterly basis, because I really value hearing from those staff associations and of course including the Sikh Police Association, because I need to know what you're thinking as people who are doing the job on the ground. From my own professional perspective, having been, for example, a solicitor for 35 years, I understand the frustrations that people can feel when they are working on the front line and other people think that they know more about the job you're doing or want to tell you how best to do it. So I completely empathise with that, I completely get it. That's why I reinstated those meetings, and I pledge that they're going to be continuing over the course of the next 4 years following my re-election. And on that subject, I was re-elected as Police and Crime Commissioner in May 2024 for a 4-year term on this occasion. And that was following a long, hard-fought campaign, long, hard-fought struggle, indeed, that involved me winning 2 votes in Parliament, winning a public consultation, and indeed winning 2 court battles in the High Court and the Court of Appeal. And having achieved all of that, I then had to fight an election across the West Midlands within about 5 weeks. And I was privileged, honoured to be able to successfully negotiate that election campaign, and indeed I doubled my majority in the process. So I did that because I really felt that it was important that in the West Midlands we had a democratically elected and directly accountable Police and Crime Commissioner whose one and only top priority was preventing, tackling and reducing crime in the West Midlands. And during that campaign I had the privilege and the honour of attending many Vaisakhi events, many Gurdwaras across the West Midlands during the course of that campaign, and indeed I appeared on numerous Sikh TV channels as well, and I'm very grateful for the support that I was given from the Sikh community to enable me to do that. And attending those events really always reminded me of the core Sikh values, which are all about equality and the need to care for those less fortunate than ourselves, and of course selfless service. And I believe those core Sikh values are an example to us all. Of course, having been re-elected as Police and Crime Commissioner, a little like the cliched London bus, just as when you don't have any elections come along for quite some time, suddenly 2 come along in quick succession. And we then had a general election being called only 3 weeks after I had been elected. The outcome of that has now been determined, of course, on the 4th of July, with commitments set out in the successful parties and the new government's manifesto around rebuilding community policing, with a particular focus around violence and knife crime and violence against women and girls. And I have to say, those three core priorities very much reflect the key top priorities that I had when I was elected back in May 2021. And I believe the King's Speech is going to be taking place on Wednesday, and doubtless that will flesh out some more detail around the government's priorities around policing and crime and community safety, and indeed criminal justice. So it's also worth reflecting, I think, that we now have a record number of Sikh MPs in Parliament, which is quite an achievement. And indeed, we now have 4 Sikh MPs in the West Midlands. And it was a real privilege for me to go out and campaign and to support them during the course of their campaigns. And I think it is worth checking those MPs. Sonia Kumar in Dudley, Gurinder Josan in Smethwick, Warinder Juss in Wolverhampton West, and of course Preet Gill, who was re-elected in Birmingham Edgbaston. So that's quite an achievement. It's particularly an achievement, bearing in mind that Section 1 of the Sikh Manifesto was all about wanting to improve representation of the Sikh community in Parliament. So there has been progress around all of that. I also reflect on Section 4 of the Sikh Manifesto, which is all about hate crime and a commitment to recognising anti-Sikh hate crime definition as defined by the All-Party Parliamentary Group back in 2020. Perhaps the election of a new government is an opportunity to revisit the recognition of that definition by Her Majesty's government. And that is something that would certainly have my support here in the West Midlands, I can assure you. I also, as a commitment to my concern around hate crime being a devastating and often catastrophic event if you're a victim of it, because I fund the first West Midlands-wide hate crime victim support service within the West Midlands, and that's been funded since I was elected back in 2021, and again, my pledge is to continue to support that victim support service. Review of accountability and governance. Very briefly, just give people a heads up. I am reviewing the accountability and governance structure that I operate in the West Midlands as the Police and Crime Commissioner. Many of you will be aware that one of my key duties is to hold the Chief Constable and West Midlands Police to account on behalf of the people who elect me. And I'm reviewing that accountability and governance structure. I'm still going to have a strategic policing and crime board, but rather than 7 people on that board, there will be 3. That will be myself, my appointed Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner, Wazim Ali, and we are also advertising to appoint a dedicated victims advocate on the basis that I want to ensure that victims' right and welfare remains at the very forefront of the criminal justice system at all times. And we've also advertised for an advisory board that I want to be truly representative of the people and communities of the West Midlands. That will have up to 20 to 25 people from across the West Midlands, and they will advise me on a whole series of different issues and assist me in terms of helping hold the Chief Constable to account. And then finally, I just want to reference that yesterday we launched the consultation for my new West Midlands Police and Crime Plan in the West Midlands. That was launched at Birmingham and Smethwick Mellor, a community event some of you might be familiar with. We wanted to launch it at a community event because one of my pledges as Police and Crime Commissioner has always been that I want to be a people and communities Police and Crime Commissioner, a Police and Crime Commissioner who engages with, listens to and works with communities at all times. So we launched that. We had QR codes, we had tablets, we wanted people to complete the survey, which lasted about 6 minutes or so to complete. And we're going to be, for example, also attending the Simmer Down event in Handsworth in a week's time as well. And the consultation process will last about 3 months. And that's going to replace my existing police and crime plan. And we're asking the public to say what is particularly important to them, what they want West Midlands Police, and indeed myself, to prioritise in order to prevent and tackle crime across the West Midlands. And I really want to take this opportunity to encourage all of you to participate in that survey. We want to hear what you think, and indeed I would be keen to hear what the Sikh Police Association think in terms of interacting with that police and crime plan. So I really encourage you to take part in that. It's going to be an extensive and wide-ranging consultation, and of course police staff and police officers and staff associations are very welcome to participate in that. We want to make sure that we're doing everything we can for the people and communities of the West Midlands to prevent and tackle and reduce crime. Thank you very much.
Right, I know everyone's probably hungry as well, and a little bit tired, but it's a lot to digest, isn't it? And I hope you've took value from everything that's been shared here today. It is very important to our members of the community who, you know, they're held in high regard. The procedure here is our multi-faith chaplaincy lead. How many Sikh chaplaincies do you think we have in West Midlands Police? One.
Oh.
That's, in my eyes,
That's
is a
true.
poor representation
Very
from
poor.
our community.
Yeah.
I'll just call it out straight. Can you please help us to get some more chaplaincies in as well that can help support Khadija in the work that she's doing and help our fellow Sikh officers and staff as well to have someone to talk to share some of our pains and wishes with. Please help us with that. That is vitally important. I want to take a massive thank you to all of you guys. You have me all. You know, Baji, I've seen you on Basic Kaziki. I love that channel. I've seen you on there.
Yeah,
A
right,
little bit of a fanboy right now. But what you do is so important. You may not even realise, I hope you realise it, but you touch a lot of people's lives. And even those that aren't from the Sikh faith, who may tune in, they get an insight. They get an insight into what it's all about and why does our community act or shape things the way we do. Why are we able to just do seva? It makes no sense. You're going to get nothing out of it. But we're willing to put ourselves forward. Why? And, I mean, it's hard for people to comprehend that. But you put a shape to it. You put a face to it. You put a vision to it. And it makes sense. People like me drifted back towards Sikhi thanks to people like yourselves. And the youth. Wow. Absolutely wow. You know what? You taught me, again, a lot. And I am so proud to see that our youth are being led by such individuals that are going to make a difference. That makes a difference to Sandwell LPA. It makes a difference to Wolverhampton LPA, Birmingham LPA, LPAs in local policing areas. Because our commanders need to see people like yourselves who are standing up, saying the right things, doing the right things, challenging, being that critical friend is probably the best phrase for it. Our critical friend, helping people like me to do something positive in order to be able to get our community meshed and interacting properly with the services that are available. You know what? I've done 2 passing out parades, or 3, sorry, I've been to 3 passing out parades. Our passing out parades are officers who have joined West Midlands Police and are ready to take the next step to represent us and our community into the future. They're our future superintendents, hopefully chief constables. Do you know how many Sikh officers there were? I went to 3. One was a double intake, so I'll take it 4 intakes. There was 1. How can we expect to be represented if we aren't going to come to the forefront and help support and shape, be a piece, you know, be part of that table when decisions are being made? So that's your responsibility as well. I'm looking at my community as well, and at the back, and so I know there's a lot of distrust, but we're trying to break down those barriers. We're trying to make that bridge so that we can all cross it safely and be part of something bigger, the bigger picture where we are represented. And thank you to alluding to the fact that, you know, in Parliament we've now got X amount of representatives. We've never had that many. And you know what, I look to them to make a difference to my life, to everyone else's life as well. We need to work in collaboration. Imam, he is a imam from such a young age. I'm a fanboy of his as well. He's like a little brother, and I respect him so much. He teaches me a lot of things as well. He's not only an imam, he's been given to West Midlands Police from the Muslim community. He's a gift. He is special, but he works with me, he works with everyone to try and make things bigger and better. So we have the resources, we've got tools, we just need to be able to use them effectively and make things happen. And we've got to make things happen for ourselves. And that can't be done as silos, it's got to be done through clear communication, being open and honest. I'll be honest with you, this conversation that we've had today could never have happened a couple of years ago. No one was willing to do it. Our Chief Constable is very straight and he's very direct. He's allowed us to do this because we had that conversation with him. He knows how important it is to our community. He knows how important it is for us to have these difficult conversations because that's the only way we're going to move forward and break ground. Yeah? So thank you so much for being part of this yourselves as well. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for representing. And thank you for being part of what we've done here today. And I hope you take something beneficial from it. If not, the lunch is going to be phenomenal. But can I just thank my team though? Ghallughara as well? Yeah, we've got Ghallughara here as well. We've got all our community partnerships as well who are here with us. But my team as well. I want to thank my team who made this all come together. Without them, I can vision. I can have a vision of something, but we can never put it together. Jack worked his socks off. And John only has small socks. There's not much left there. Sorry. But he worked tirelessly to make this happen. But we do this while doing our normal day job as well. Please network after this. Don't just disappear. Network, talk to everyone, each other, and introduce yourselves to the senior ranks that are here. Please just talk to them. See what we can do to make our areas better, make West Midlands Police a lot better. And again, thank you to everyone, thank you to the people that have come here, thank you to those, we've got artwork at the back on display, please have a look at that as well. Is it for purchase as well? We can buy some as well if you want to. And we've got Ghallughara, we can see how we can support them. We've got Safeguard as well, which is for hate crime. And just ask the questions, be curious. And thank you very, very much.
One you missed off there, Seek Helpline, they're also here. Please do speak to them as well about the great work that they do. Food is being served in the back room. Thank you. It's called the trophy room. So please just line up.
You're exactly what I meant.
Please line up. Thank you so much.